look at what showed up today. Ta-da! Bearings and seal kit. First thing that makes me nervous about this is neither one of the transmissions we're working on is listed on this, even though this is the part number from their website, so that's interesting. And our 49 tooth, and I believe this was 45 tooth. So this is the actual input shaft. That's a 2018 high lifter input shaft for the transmission that has the smaller gearing. So this gear should go with that gear. So we can get a higher high. We're gonna mock some things up first and look at some things here. So this, see? Same as that. That's what those are. This is how this sits like this. This should go right in this transmission. Maybe. Yep, just like that. Ta-da! Well, that freaking thing worked super sweet. Let's see, what's this tool? This is a Orion Motor Tech ball joint separator, tie rod, and remover kit. Does it have a part number in here? There's no part number, so good luck figuring out what it is. But that's what it is. It works great for this. That's not what you want the bearing to sound like. Now, given it is dry, but if you look in here, there is some interesting stuff going on. Ooh, this one's crunchy feeling. Hear that one, how it doesn't want to roll? This one's definitely chooched up. Anywho, see this guy when you go to rotate it? That's what a bearing's supposed to be like. Rotate smooth and quiet.
How you guys doing in there? Good? You look good. You look pretty fantastic.
Let's check this camera situation again. We good? Are we on? Are we hello? Hello? Are you recording? Oh yeah, you guys are still recording. You're looking good up there, guys. Killing it. Okay, this part is trickier to do because these are held together with a reverse chain. So once again, on the turbo models, they don't have a reverse chain. But on the non-turbo models, I don't know if it's all of them, but at least the 1000s, they have a reverse chain. So if I remember right, you got to kind of hold these just right and hold your tongue just right, and you can oh, you know what we need to do? We need to count this. So that's 25. We need to make sure on the new shaft that the new one's 25 right there, or else we won't have good mesh. Where's the new one here? Where did it go? Where'd the new one go? Where is that? On the bench where I just walked away from? It's right here. Here's the new one, guys. So that is that gear. We need this and that to match. We already know this matches because this is, see how it's wider? It's the wider one for the high lifter. And then the rest of this matches the secondary, and this gear matches the new one that we got for that. So we need to make sure that's 25 and this is 25. Let's do us some counting. Hallelujah, that should work. Put that guy right in, yeah. So we don't need to even take the bearings off of this because we're gonna put new ones on that. You hear that guy? This one is all right. Ooh, that one's not. Okay, so we need to start pulling this apart because we need to get that gear off and that off. I think we pull this side apart first. So this is one of the shift dogs. So see how this slides on here? So when the shift forks are in there, they go here. When you slide this up, this engages this gear. So see how that locks in there? So then this gear is what drives that. This one is low gear. When this is down, see how this just spins on the shaft freely? And this isn't engaged. So this right here, this is what neutral looks like. So the transmission's not spinning. It's not spinning any power. And then when this goes down, that's high gear. So see how it wants to engage and it wants to turn this? And then when this goes this way, that's reverse, because this is engaged on this side. So that's how that works. So we just got to make sure we put this back on there that same way. There's not much room here, so this is interesting to do this. And you don't want to stretch the chain if you can stay away from doing it. See, there's that bearing right there. So here's a spacer that goes there. I know you professionals that are out there are like, hey dummy, if you did this and this, then it would be easier. So see how this doesn't, there's no splines in there. This is just supposed to spin freely until this engages these guys. And then here's our bearing, which we got new ones, so we're going to replace those. Now we should be able to get this out of here. So for high gear, that's this one and that one. That's high gear. And then this, even though it looks like a gear, it's not. This is actually what the reverse chain drives on. So see how this is like that? And this just spins freely. It's hard to show all of this when it's together, but this reverse chain is always moving whenever the transmission is in high, low, whatever, because it's always set on this. It's just not engaged to actually throw the transmission in reverse. Quick recap, this is a 2016 or newer style shaft. This specific shaft is a 2018 high lifter. And the reason why I picked that is because high gear, which are these two, this high gear ratio is the highest ratio, meaning you can do the highest speed. So I wanted to increase high speed in that because I did the ACE 325 gear reduction. So that was 27% reduction in that. But it reduced reverse, low, and high all together. So that was on this old shaft. So that means that in low, the highest or the fastest I could run was about, I mean, you're wrapping out the engine at about 26 miles an hour. In reverse, you don't really wrap it out in reverse. But in high, on the roads in Utah, this thing was screaming at like 55 miles an hour. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to lower engine RPM, but be able to do the same speed. So that's why I did this right here, which required this whole shaft and this gear. And it'll only work if you also have the high lifter reverse chain, which mine originally didn't, but I had already done that in a previous rendition of this transmission. So let's get this bearing pressed on here. Okay, we're finally back at it. It's been a couple days. I've been exceptionally lazy. Was working on stuff over the holidays for like 3 weeks in a row every single day. So I took a couple days off, but back at it today. We want to get this beast back on the road. Come on here, big dog. Oh, biscuits, you're heavy. You gained weight. What the hoot? This is very much a lift with your legs and not your back sort of day, because my back is killing me like it always is. It's a blasty blast, let me tell you about back problems. See, that thing is bent. This is why they make, see how that head of that bolt is wobbling around? What was gonna happen is that eventually was gonna break off. So this looks like that might be a factory thickness plate. We can compare it to mine because mine's a thicker one. The issue is this plate is really thin from the factory, and it'll deflect because there's so much load on this. This is going out to your front drive shaft for your front diff. When that deflects, it bends the bolts, and the bolts break off. This comes loose. This could potentially come out of there, cause a whole bunch of issues. Or you could have like what I did on my trans that's in my RZR, and I had one of these bolt heads break off of there. Luckily, I was doing a service and I found the bolt on the magnet for the drain, and then that's what tempted me to tear the trans apart and go through everything. Yeah, both of those bolts were broken. Let's see how this one is here. That one's not. That's going to be one of the stronger ones because it's back there where it's got a lot of reinforcement. And then this bolt is the long one. So those are three the same. See how much this plate is sitting up proud of there? That's because that plate is warped. But those are the three short bolts. This is a longer bolt. This goes into the snorkel gear backlash adjustment screw. This one's bent also. See, longer bolt, shorter bolt. There's a reason for that. So now this, we'll just lift out of there. Like that. So see this plate? See this thickness on that? If we look at my 15 trans, I upgraded this plate. And the upgraded plate looks like see the difference? It's twice as thick. Because I had this OEM plate in there and it warped like that and broke bolts. So that's why when you're in the trans, spend the extra 40 bucks or whatever that plate costs and just buy it, because it's not worth it. If you're already there, it's cheap insurance. Anywho, that guy goes there. What we want to look at is this snorkel. Make sure everything with that looks good. It looks good. It feels good too. So mine broke right here, remember? So what we're going to look at is pulling this out and just using this section. I'll put new bearings on it, but we'll just double check and verify gear count. So that bolt that goes through right there engages with this. So as you turn this in, of course, this will draw this into the case further. You want to make sure that your backlash is set right. So the further you drive this and you thread this into the case, it's going to drive this entire thing that way and get you more backlash. When you want to take up backlash, you unthread this to pull this away, and then this is what sets it from moving. So this is the stuff that I use on the seals, and put it around there and then press the seals in there. This stuff like never dries, it always stays tacky and it holds the seals in place. So here's what we're doing right here. Small amount of lithium grease onto the threads, we did that. Blah blah blah, tighten the snorkel tube until it is lightly seated in the housing, we did that. Spec pinion shaft assembly, yada yada yada. Install that. See, apply Loctite to threads. Install only the 3 screws that secure the pinion shaft in the assembly. Do not install the long screw. There's our torque spec, 10 foot-pounds. Rotate the snorkel tube counterclockwise using the snorkel tool until the snorkel gear and the pinion have 0 backlash. Do not over tighten the snorkel tube at 0 backlash. Should still be able to turn the snorkel shaft using your fingers, but it will feel rough and may have some tight spots. Look into the transmission housing to see the snorkel locking screw hole opening. Slowly rotate the snorkel tube clockwise while counting the number of notches passing through the opening. As you rotate the snorkel tube back to the 3rd notch from 0 backlash. So see, as you thread this in here, watch this bearing. That's what pulls that whole assembly in there. So what you got to do is you thread this all the way in until it bottoms out. These are these 3 bearing retainer bolts. So one here, one there, and one there. Don't put the long one in here yet, because that's what locks that down. So now what you want to do is you want to hold this in place and turn this. So you're trying to feel that backlash that's in there. So how you get rid of that backlash is you use this tool if you have it. If not, just roll pin punches will work. Remember, we turn this all the way in, and if you force it a little further, you're gonna get more backlash. So what we want to do is we want to remove backlash. So the OEM manual, I believe it says you want to have 3 notches of backlash. So on that little crown of that, you want to rotate 3 notches and you want that much backlash. So all I'm doing is unscrewing this so it pulls this gear that's over here into this gear. And then I'm just, so there's a little bit of backlash there. So that's like starting to get tight, so there should be no backlash there, and that's not enough. So we need to go in a little bit, and what we can do is we can drop our screwdriver down here, and we want to turn this. See how that dropped in there? That's because it's in one of those slots. So we got to rebuild this shift mechanism. So we've got O-rings in the kit. We've got to clean all this up. I should have done that before I put the case halves together, but I'm not smart, so. Sometimes when you're dumb, you do dumb things. And I'm dumb, so I do lots of dumb things. This little nut right here's got to come out, and then this whole shaft pulls out. There's some O-rings that are on here that seals this shaft going through that. There's an O-ring on that that seals that shaft going through here. So if you ever are looking at the passenger side of the RZR, transmission right here, this is where all your shift assembly goes when it's together. This guy sits right here. If this is ever oily, it's because of those O-rings, and the oil will wipe these out. So I think this is my third one of these that I've had to put on this. I should have only had to put a seal in here, but I didn't know, and I changed this out, and then I let it leak into that, and it wiped it out again, and then I told you I'm dumb. So now this assembly is gonna sit in here. So see this countersunk part? That sits like that. And now we gotta take that O-ring off. So see those two little marks right there? See that one little mark right there? Yeah, I bet you can't guess how this goes together. So this is keyed. See how it's got a master spline? And this shaft has got that same spline on there. So that has to be right. And then you've got to get your alignment of that. So right now, it's not in alignment. But don't worry, we're gonna fix it. You can take this guy out. And all you need to do is grab onto this with, I use channel locks, flat channel locks, or vice grips. Or you could put the linkage arm on there, but it's up to you, however you want to turn it. And by turning this, all you're doing is shifting the machine. And it should shift easy. You shouldn't have to wrench on this. So remember that shift dog arm that's in there? That's all we're doing is turning that. So now that's rotated all the way that way. So you can drop this in. And see your alignment pins? The one goes between the two. So there's that part. Next part is this guy. This guy is also keyed, see? So our key is right here. So we just turned this all the way clockwise. So our indent, this is when you shift it and you feel kind of that click, that pop, that's what that is. So that's park, that's reverse, that's neutral, that's low, that's high. That's how that works. Now, you might ask, how does this stay in place? Well, this little spring. So this spring goes on that tab right there, and then it just wedges against the body over here. Just like that. Okay, we're finally to the point where we need to do the shaft alignment on this and lock down our locking plate. And then what you gotta do is you gotta slide these on here. So see how far out that is? Let's get you in closer. So see how this is on the engine? Look at this. See how far out alignment that is? That's why they make this tool. All right, I'm gonna put you back on my head so you can see what's going on. Okay, so what you wanna do is you wanna have all of the engine mounts loose. You don't have to worry about this one, but everything in the middle loose so you can move this around, because you gotta get this to align. So you can slide this together. And you slide one block. So you might have to kind of wiggle the transmission around as you're doing this to get this to move. Because you gotta leave yourself enough space so you can get a wrench in here to tighten all this stuff down. And then you slide this one on. And this one goes right out on the end. And now what you do is you clamp all these down, and that's holding those shafts so that they can't do any of this. It's holding them perfectly straight together. Okay, so these are clamped down. Of course, these shafts are bolted down tight to the crank and to the secondary. So now what you can do is you could lock down your 4 bolts on this side and then your 4 bolts on the other side. Get all of that set in place. That's your next step. All right, so now you've got all 4 of these bolts on this side tightened down, and you've got all 4 of these bolts on this side tightened down. Now you can take this back out of there. So see, that's what you want. No resistance, it's not fighting at all. That's how you know that you've got that aligned. So there you go, that's how you use the SDI alignment tool. This thing saves so much money. Yeah, it might be a little bit of a cost up front, but just think about spending $200 on a belt every time you blow a belt up because you have an alignment issue. That's why it's nice to do it the right way. So the next thing we do is where all these holes are at, those are all set screws. Put some blue Loctite on those. Put all those set screws in there. That's just to help. So it's not only these bolts that are bolting that in there, that's to put an indent in each one of the engine and the transmission case to try and hold this from moving. The next thing I want to do is, remember we changed high gear in this? I want to mark the output and count it, and I want to see what that changed for ratios. So reverse and low should be the same. High should be a little bit higher. Right now I believe it's in high. So we will turn this, see how many times this rotates versus that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11 3/4. Do some quick math. Okay, so here's our results. 13.5 was our previous, how many times this rotated. 11.75 is our current, which that equates to 13.86% difference. So that's exactly what we found on the computer when we referenced the high lift or high gear with my configuration. So my transmission now in high gear, I should be able to get higher speed, lower RPM. So that's exactly what we wanted. All right, that's going to be it for this video. So what did we learn? We learned that we can take a 2015 transmission, put a 2016 or newer secondary output shaft in it, and with doing that, if you pick the right secondary output shaft, you can do a higher high gear. So now we've got 2015 RZR that's got the ACE 325 gear reduction in it, which is 27% across the board. So that's reverse, low, and high. That reduction in 27%. But when I'm running 32-inch tall tires, which are these guys, and I'm on the streets in Moab or Hurricane or anywhere, and I'm running, trying to do like 50, 55 down the highway or down the road, I don't have to just live at 8,000 RPM. So 13.8% increase in high. So I should be able to go, that's not like a linear adjustment, but I should be able to go 13.8% higher speed at the same RPM. So should be good. Anyways, that's going to be the end of this video. The next time you see this, we should be testing it. I'm waiting for a couple of seals for the clutch covers because I noticed that those were damaged. Those are supposed to show up hopefully this week, and I could button all this back up and get it going. So you don't need to see the rest of me putting this together. It's boring stuff. Wheels and tires, putting the shock back on there and the clutches. Nobody cares about that. Anyways, bye!